Hi, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is episode 195, and I am Lisa, your host, also known as Fibernymph on Ravelry and Instagram. Today is Friday, March 25th, and it's sort of a gloomy day here in the Berg, but the weekend's supposed to be nice, so we'll just go with that. Anyway, hopefully the gloominess out there will not affect my energy level for the podcast. I'm feeling kind of tired today. I slept fine last night, but I'm just kind of I'm sort of achy today too, which is just sort of an ongoing issue that I have, but for no real reason. I have achy days. I'm old. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Anyway, okay, so let me say hello to Kim, who is from Ohio. She introduced herself on the 90% Knitting Ravelry board. I never can get that out right. The welcome thread in the 90% Knitting board on Ravelry. Got to get those words correct. Anyway, Kim, hi. Thanks for introducing yourself. And hello to everybody else who's out there too, whether you've introduced yourself or not, or if you're new, or if you've been watching for a while. Thanks. I'm glad you're here. Let's just get right into things because honestly, I don't have a lot today. I've tried recording this podcast about 7 times now. No joke. Most of them I've just kind of gotten into a few times and then something technical would happen or I'd remember, oh, I forgot to bring something, So I had to keep stopping and stopping and stopping. And I did actually record the whole thing once and then I went back through it. I'm like, oh my gosh, why were you babbling so much about that? And rather than trying to just edit and everything, I just thought, I'm going to do this again. So this is it. I'm not... What you get this time is what you get. So fingers crossed this goes well. Anyway, knitting wise, not a lot. My knitting mojo is still sort of missing, although I did work on a few things this week. But that's okay. I'm not going to complain. It's fine. It is what it is. And I was really busy this week otherwise. It was a very busy work week. And I also took some time off this week to have some fun, which I'll tell you about later during the 10% part. But first I'm going to start with my really, really cute finished object. Is this not the most adorable little thing that you've ever seen? This is from the pattern Beans the Cat, which I showed you last week. There we go. Showed you the pattern, and so I knit this little guy up. Oh my gosh. It was super easy. Like I've said, knitting stuffed things are not usually like the things I like to knit because they seem fussy and everything. This was not very fussy. The only part you had to attach to it was this little I-cord tail. And I love how I-cord just sort of curls. Like it naturally will do that. So it's perfect. The little tails wrapped around the kitty cat. And I did deviate from the pattern a bit, especially with how you're putting it together and closing it at the end because she has you closing it at the top before you stuff it, and then you're supposed to stuff it through like the little hole that would be at the bottom from where you first started. But honestly, I did not have much of a hole because I was a pretty tight knitter starting that little circle. So I stuffed it before I did the 3-needle bind off, which that's the other thing. She has you closing it some other way. I used a 3-needle bind off, which worked fine, and it gave it some definition up at the top too so that the ears they're more obvious than they would be if I would have just Kitchenered it or something. I really kind of used the pattern just for shaping the body, and everything else I kind of just winged it. But anyway, I knit the body and then I stuffed it and I shaped the ears the way you're supposed to. I guess I did that according to the pattern. And then I stitched the eyes and the nose on. I used just DMC floss, cross stitch thread or whatever to do that, and that's also what the whiskers are. I think I should have probably made the whiskers like white or gray. They would have showed up better, but I did black and they're fine. And I just kind of pulled those through with the needle and then separated the strands so they're not tied in there. I could pull them right back out if I felt like it, which I won't because that would be mean. But anyway, I did that, and then I knit the I-cord and attached his tail, and he's done, and he's just so cute. And I have to keep him in here or put him up somewhere where my cat can't get him because Babette is renowned for finding little things like this. This doesn't have catnip or anything in it, but she'll find it and she'll maul it. And I don't want him mauled. So anyway, he was my happy little kitty. And I can't remember if I mentioned it, but Beans the Cat is the pattern name, and Linda Dawkins is the designer, and I knit him out of a little sample skein of Tortoise Shell Cat, which is the colorway name, from Neely's Knits. She sent this little like 10-gram skein along with an order I'd placed one time, and I actually have a full skein of this colorway that she dyed up for me on a different base, but this is her, I think it's a wool and silk blend base. I like the silk because it gives it a tiny bit of sheen, which was really nice for this little kitty cat. So anyway, it was the perfect yarn to make this little stuffed cat out of. So anyway, and I think it was knit on US ones. I don't know. You can look at the project page, but I'm pretty sure it was US ones. Alrighty, so despite my still missing knitting mojo for the most part, I did get some project progress made on some works in progress. The first of which is the Ville shawl. I did do some work on that, so here it is, still in the textured eyelet section. Here's where I was last time you saw it, so I added about 2 inches, I guess. This pattern is by Kristen Lair, who is Volenvine from Volenvine Yarns, and she has the Yarngasm podcast. This is her design. I believe I am now, I think I have the right number of stitches to start the next section, which is a lace section. I was having issues with getting the right number of stitches, not just the right number of stitches, but the right number of stitches on either side of the center stitch. For whatever reason, I guess I was forgetting to do increases on one side or the other at certain points, so I had to do some fiddling around in some rows, like not do increases on one side but do them on the other side to kind of get my stitch count correct. I think it's right now. I need to do one more count of it before I move on. If it's not correct, it's probably like maybe 1 stitch off, and I can make that up the next time I'm knitting a row. So anyway, it's coming along. I'm actually looking forward to getting to the lace section, the first lace section, because I'm getting a little bored with this eyelet. The textured eyelet was super easy to do. It's a 4-row repeat, very easy to memorize. I did a modification on it. I think I told you, but I'll say it again. You're supposed to purl the yarn overs through the back loop on the wrong side. When I was doing that, I was getting a really tight fabric, and so I have just been purling normally, you know, through the front loop, and it's giving me the nice open eyelet fabric that I wanted. So I'm happy with that. So we'll see how it progresses once I get into that lace. I really want to get into the lace. But anyway, this is my yarn. This is my Sunshine base, Fiber Nymph Dye Works Sunshine in the Brick Alley colorway, which is sort of a muted red with gray overwash sections. So it's sort of like a dirty earthy red. A dirty brick red is what it is. Yeah, and that's on US 6s. I did make a tiny bit of progress on Lefty also. I pulled that out and I did one more section. So I have one more section, white section, and one more leaf and stripe. So this is by Martina Bem. It's the Lefty pattern. And let's see. Yeah, you can see that's where I was last time. So just one more white section, and I did the 5th color in my 5 color block colors for the stripe and its accompanying leaf, which is right there. That's the back. Here's the front. So I love how it's turning out. That takes me up to 20 leaves. I want to do 30, so I've still got a ways to go, especially since these segments are taking at least an hour for me to get through at this point. That's why I'm not working on it quite as frequently as I was at the beginning. But I love how it turns out. It's turning out, and I would like to have it to wear this spring, so I will continue to work on it. The yarn that I'm using, the white is just my bounce base undyed, and then the color block set that I'm using is from Knitty and Color. And it's those 5 colors, and I love them. They're turning out great. So, and I think that's US 2.5s. Yeah, US 2.5 needles for that. I can just zip the yarn into the zipper here. Alrighty, so the only other thing I worked on, I actually made a good deal of progress on this, and I'll tell you why I made a good deal of progress on this, is my Ardmore sock. Now, the last time you saw this, you saw the first one, which I had just started knitting, like I had gotten to where the afterthought heel will come in, and then I'd started knitting down into the foot. Now, if you remember, okay, first of all, this is my yarn, Fiber 9 Dye Works Bounce Base. This is the Ardmore colorway. It was the colorway I dyed up for the Celtic collaboration sets that Ashley from Kneeling Knits and I did together a while back. So I wanted to knit this up so that I had a sample to show, because it's really hard for me to do my normal graphic representation whenever there's a stripe that is a variegated stripe. That's just really hard to demonstrate graphically for me. So I thought I'll just knit up a repeat of it so I could add that to the listing and people could see how it's going to knit up. Well, when I first started this sock, I only had 1.5 needles. I didn't have any more US 1s, and I've been doing my socks on US 1s lately. So I thought, whatever, I'll just start it on the US 1.5, and then when I get to the foot part, I'll switch to a US 1, because that's, I really want that part to fit snugly. So that's what I did, but the US 1 that I switched this to was those Sonics needles, do you remember, from Collage, that I got, and I did a few rows, like maybe an inch on that, and I didn't like it at all. And if you remember, I don't have them here with me, although, you know what, the Ville Smear is on the US 6s. Last time I recorded, I think I said, I don't remember what project I have the US 6, the 24-inch US 6 on. Well, it's this. But just to show you the needles, again, like here's the metal part of the needle, and here's the cable, but it's attached by this little nubby bit here, which on the bigger needle, the 6, that nubby bit goes inside the needle part, which is fine. It doesn't get hung up. I'm really like knitting with them. It's going great. But on the sock size needles, the US 1s, that nubby bit is on the outside of the needle because it's actually larger than the needle itself. So it's on the outside, and it was getting hung up so much, and I was not enjoying doing that because I really had to work to get it over that join, and that's no fun. And it sucks the joy out of sock knitting, quite frankly. So that was why I hadn't worked on them anymore last week. But this week I decided, you know what, I want to be working on these socks just because I needed something a little bit mindless to do, because to go places and stuff, I like having a sock to carry around. So I swapped them out for just a pair of my Hayas, because I had ordered a couple more pairs of US 1 Hayas, so I had them to put in there, and that's what I did. So the foot part is done on a US 1, the top part is done on a US 1.5, but it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. And then the heel will go in there. I did not put the heel in. Usually I do the whole sock and the heel and then move on to the second sock, but at the point that I was going to do, at the point that I finished the toe of the first sock, I was not in a good place to pick up stitches to do that. So I just started the second sock because that was the easier option. So here it is. And it's pretty identical as far as where I cast on. So they'll be matchy-matchy socks, which is always exciting when I can manage that. And I am now, once again, I started this on US 1.5s as well, so they'll match size-wise as well. So I'm at the point where I'm going to have to switch to the US 1s to do the foot part. And I have the US 1s in my bag, ready to go. So the next time I knit on those, that'll happen. Yeah, so that's it. But no, I gotta say, the sock size, that US 1 Sonics just didn't do it for me. Just too much fiddling around to work over that join. Everything else about the needle I like. Now the only other, the only other thing I will say, also I noticed more with the sock needle than with the US 6, is the fact that the needles have, let's see, I'll show you on the set that is not in. This is the US 6, the 16-inch. The needles have that engraved writing on them. So like the information about the needle is directly on the needle, but it's engraved. So it actually adds sort of a little bit of texture to the needle. And on this one is much more prominent than this one. This one's almost smooth. This one is prominent. So I guess it depends on how deeply they get engraved. That mustn't be completely, consistent from needle to needle. I can feel it on the US 6 in the shawl. the ville de smear. I can feel it as I'm knitting it, but it doesn't slow me down. Like, it's just there. It's a little distracting sometimes, or it was. I'm kind of used to it now, but it's not causing me any heartache while I'm knitting it. The sock needles, though, that really bothered me. Like, that was another thing that, like, I could feel that engraving, that texture from that, you know, adding just a little bit of extra friction. So between that and the funky join, those just are not sock needles for me. Your mileage may vary, but I didn't like them. I prefer my Hayas for socks. I think they're always going to be my favorite sock needles, quite frankly. Yeah. So anyway, that was all my knitting this week. No spinning, no other knitting. I will eventually get back to my Atalaya shawl. Because that's what we're going to move into, talking about the unofficial Laura Ayler knit along that I am co-hosting with Melissa from Meltrian Designs, the Meltrian Designs podcast. I started it 2 weeks ago. You saw that little bit that I started, and I haven't touched it since. I haven't had the brain capacity to work on that pattern, and it does take a little bit of thought. So it will happen because I really do want to make it. I just haven't had time to work on it yet. So anyway, but please do join us for the Laura Ayler knit along. Again, it's sort of unofficial, just in the fact that there's no real strict guidelines. There was no super strict start date. If it's something you already have a Laura Ayler pattern on the needles, just join us with it. There's no firm end date. I think it'll probably just be kind of when we maybe peter out on things. Who knows? Yeah. And there's only one thread. I mean, there's a thread in each of our groups, but there's only one in my group as far as, you know, it's the one that we can chatter. It's the one you can post in progress pictures. It's the one you can ask questions. It's the one you post your finished object to. Everything is in that one thread. And I will probably just randomly draw for a prize here and there throughout the unofficial knit along. So, but again, it's unofficial. I don't have any official knit alongs going on right now. We will eventually, but right now I don't. So that's it. Join us for that. Excuse me. Okay, moving on. New things. I don't have anything for you this week. I think, yeah, nothing new. I don't think I got anything new this week in the mail that I can think of that I ordered or. New podcasts. I honestly haven't watched very many podcasts at all this past week. I have a short list of ones that I want to watch. Either people, you know, contacted me and said, hey, I have a podcast out. You know, I'd love it if you watch it. And I always, you know, I'm happy to do that. So I've got some of those kind of podcasts, and then I've also got some podcasts that I've heard about on other people's podcasts that I want to check out. I just didn't do a lot of podcast watching this week. It was very much a reading week for me, like audiobooks when I was dying, because when I die, that's when I mainly watch podcasts, or at least listen to them. But this week, I wanted to listen to my audiobooks. I've been in a major reading mode. That's kind of partly why I'm not knitting as much, too. I just want to read. I don't know. It happens occasionally. So anyway, but I will get back to the podcast, and once I watch some new ones, I'll let you know what they were. And also, real briefly, I just wanted to mention a little bit of housekeeping stuff. On Instagram, I'm on Instagram as Fibernymph, like I say at the beginning of every podcast. But my Instagram feed is set as private. It didn't used to be. I changed it just because I had some odd, creepy stuff go on, which happens to everybody occasionally, I think. But I decided to keep it private. I would say about 50% of what I post on there is knitting related. 50% is more like personal, what I'm doing, if I've gone someplace, pictures like that, you know, not necessarily family oriented things because my kids aren't really around at this point, but you know, just what I'm doing kind of stuff, or random stuff. Little tiny bit, like maybe 1%, 2%, like Fibernymph Dye Works advertising. I don't use Instagram as a huge advertising venue. Just occasionally, like when there's a shop update coming, or, you know, like when I did the sock club last week, you know, I post that kind of stuff, or if I'm doing a sale, I'll post like a post about that. But otherwise, it's not advertising. That being said, I have it set to private. So if you want me to, if you want to be able to follow my Instagram feed, I have to approve you. And I don't really weed anybody out from that. That's fine. I'm happy to have anybody. But the thing is, I want it to be at least somebody who's into following it because they're knitters. I don't really want just random creepy people following me, and that's happened occasionally. So if you request to follow my Instagram feed, I'm going to assume, no, I'm not going to assume. I'm going to assume I don't know who you are. So if your Instagram account, like if your name has something about knitting or spinning or sewing or something, then I'm going to know that you're a fiber person probably. You know, if yours is not private and I can see pictures of your knitting, or I can see who else you follow and you follow other knitting podcasters, then it's no problem. The ones that are problems for me is whenever somebody asks to follow my Instagram account, but their account is private, so I can't see anything that they've posted or anything that they follow. So I don't know. And if their name says nothing about knitting, or if they don't have anything in their description that says anything about knitting or something fiber related, I have no idea who you are. And I realize that that's, you know, it's it's how people choose to do their thing. You know, I mean, my account is very clear. I'm a knitter, so if I requested to follow somebody, they would know I'm a knitter. But there's some people who just don't put anything at all in that description, and it makes it really hard for me to know if you're a knitter or if you're just a creepy person. I assume that most of the people wanting to follow me are somehow knitters, or somehow in the fiber arts world, but I just try to keep the creepy people at bay, even though they might be in the very, very minority. So anyway, that being said, if you are a private person on Instagram and you don't have any description that would let me know that you are fiber related, just send me an email or PM me on Ravelry. Just give me a heads up. Hey, I'd like to follow you on Instagram. And if that's too much trouble, and that's fine, I get it. You know, I don't want to keep people from following me, but that's just my personal comfort level with social media. I used to never worry about it. I was so out there in social media, and I still am. I do a podcast, for goodness sake. And when you do a podcast, you are out in social media and you're out in the public eye. And, you know, if we do a podcast, most people understand that they're putting themselves in that position. But there's still a line. You know, everybody has a line. Where you set your line as far as maintaining a bit of privacy differs for everybody. And hopefully you understand that, though, you know, that I need to have a certain boundary of safety. So that's Instagram. But I love it when people follow me on Instagram. And I follow a bunch of people back. I probably don't follow everybody back, but that's not an intentional slight of any kind. It's just, you know, only so much time. So that's Instagram. And the other one I was going to mention is Facebook. I do have the Fiber Nymph Dye Works Facebook page, which anybody at all can follow. That does not need any approval, and I would really highly recommend that you do that, because that is where I post, you know, when there's a new podcast. I mean, I post that in the 90% Knitting group too. And there's a Fiber Nymph Dye Works group on Ravelry that I also post, you know, either podcast stuff or business stuff, depending on which it is. That's what group it'll be in. But as far as the Facebook page, you know, that a little bit of everything gets posted there. Podcast stuff, shop stuff, you know, event stuff, that all goes on the Facebook page. So that's a really good resource. But conversely, my private Facebook page, I don't always accept requests. I get a lot of requests from just like general knitters who I don't know who you are. Other than the fact that you are in the knitting world. And sometimes we have friends in common in the knitting world. But I'm reluctant to add everybody who ever asks me to be their friend on a personal level on Facebook. Not because I don't like you and not because I think you're not a nice person, but just because my personal Facebook page is mainly there for me to stay in contact with family and friends that I know in real life. I do have some knitting friends on Facebook too, but they're mostly people I've either met in person and I have a relationship with, or I've just known them for a really, really, really long time online, and I feel like I know them. You know what I mean? And I do, because I've interacted with them a lot. But, you know, just as far as like a customer or somebody who watched the podcast, I'm really reluctant to add those to my personal page, just because I do post things like with my kids and stuff like that. And even though my kids are adults, again, it's that line. It's that line of needing to keep a little bit private there. So I just wanted to say that, because I don't want anybody to be offended if you have tried to friend me on Facebook and then I've never accepted it. It's not at all meant as a personal slight. It's just a personal comfort zone boundary thing that I have. So Just putting that out there. So anyway, okay. That's everything for 90%. Let's go into 10%. This week was the second half of my Magical Musical March experience. I already told you last week about the first two concerts I saw in March, which was Eileen Ivers and Gaelic Storm. This past week, I saw Ronnie Arbo and Daisy Mayhem, which Ronnie Arbo is a woman who is also a fiddler, and Daisy Mayhem is her band, which is 3 guys, including her husband. They were fabulous. This was a concert that was part of this folk music series that we go to every month. It was great. They are based in New England. I think Connecticut, maybe. One of them might be in Massachusetts. I don't know. So maybe if you're from the New England area, you may have heard of them if you're into folk music kind of stuff. But they were really, really good. I think maybe they were the favorite concert that I saw this month, honestly. And then Wednesday, this week, we went to see Bonnie Raitt, which obviously I know who Bonnie Raitt is. I'm not a huge Bonnie Raitt fan, just because I'm not a huge rhythm and blues fan. I mean, that's not my favorite genre of music. It's fine, I like it, but it's not like me. But Bill really likes Bonnie Raitt, and so I got the tickets for him because I knew he'd really enjoy the concert, and he did. So we went to that on Wednesday, and it was a very enjoyable concert. She had a really great stage presence. I mean, she's been doing this forever, you know, and she was just funny. And honestly, I was probably among one of the youngest people at the concert. It was definitely a gray crowd, you know, an older crowd that she appealed to, which is funny because a lot of concerts I go to anymore have a very wide appeal age range wise. So that was interesting. I would not have expected that, but that's just how it turned out to be. However, it was a very, very late night, and so we both decided to just play hooky on Thursday and not go to work, which we had planned in advance. And so Thursday, yesterday, we reconvened and we spent the day in Pittsburgh, and I got to do a tourist in my own city day, which I love doing from time to time because I have lived in Pittsburgh my entire life. Okay, the Pittsburgh area. And it never ceases to amaze me the number of things I still haven't seen or done in the city. So yesterday we went to the Strip District, which is an area of Pittsburgh. There are 90 neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. I did not know that. I mean, I knew we had a lot of neighborhoods, but there are 90 different neighborhoods in Pittsburgh according to the Heinz History Center, which is where we spent the day yesterday. So the Strip District is one of those areas. Anyway, the Strip is very, it's like foods and wholesale kind of food places. A lot of restaurants get their local foods from there. A lot of ethnic food stores. There's Italian stores. There's Asian food markets. There's, I don't even know what else. There's just a lot of very ethnic-centric stores there, which is really cool, and that's it's very much an epitome thing of Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh has so many ethnic neighborhoods. Of those 90 neighborhoods, they're often very ethnic based. You know, we were like a melting pot whenever during the Industrial Revolution, and people were coming from, you know, all kinds of different countries, immigrating in, working in the steel mills and the other industrial revolution things that were going on, and that's sort of still an earmark of Pittsburgh, which is just awesome. I love that part of our history. So anyway, we went to the Strip and we went to Pamelas Diner, which if you're ever in Pittsburgh, that would be a great place for you to go. There's 6 different locations of Pamelas now. If you go on a weekend, be prepared to probably stand in line for about an hour. On a Thursday morning, not so much. We got seated right away. And bring cash because Pamelas does not take credit cards at all. You have to pay in cash. But anyway, they're known for their pancakes, which are actually more like crepes, and they are the size of a plate. I mean, they are huge, but very, very thin and they have kind of a vanilla flavor to them. They're really, really good. I did not get crepes. I got an omelet with their lyonnaise potatoes. The lyonnaise potatoes is another thing they're kind of known for. So that was yummy. That was a good way to start the day. And then we went to the Heinz History Center. Okay, Heinz, think of Heinz ketchup. Okay, the Heinz family Heinz company was started in Pittsburgh many years ago. I don't remember the exact year. I believe the headquarters are no longer in Pittsburgh. I can't remember where they are, but the there's a Heinz factory still here in Pittsburgh, and the Heinz History Center. So we got there when it opened. Literally, the doors were opening at 10 a.m. We were there waiting, and we left at 5 p.m. as they were closing the doors behind us and locking them. Whole day, 7 hours going through this place. It was phenomenal. Yeah, it was great. I love Pittsburgh history. I think I've said this before. It's one of my favorite areas of history is the local Pittsburgh history. I love Industrial Revolution. That's one of my favorite periods of history. And just the region in general, the Pittsburgh region branching out into southwestern Pennsylvania. That's basically what this history center encompasses in subject matter. So we started on the 5th floor because there's 5 floors of exhibits. I'm telling you, huge. So we started at the top and worked our way down, and it took us probably, I would say, 4 hours just to get through floor 5 and 4. We were there a long, long time. Just reading, that's the thing. I said this about the Ford Museum last week too. You know, going as an adult without kids who are trying to rush you through because they're tired or they're bored or they want to eat or they want to go see the fun things or whatever, and they don't really care about this, you know, machine that was built, you know, whatever. It's just a lot of fun to be able to go through these exhibits and actually read the cards and the information that they have there. And you know, they had obviously they had the industrial kind of history. They had some sports history, although they didn't have near as many like Pittsburgh professional team stuff like the Steelers and Penguins. There was some, but not a ton, which surprised me considering how big of a sports city Pittsburgh is. But there was a lot of regional college sports stuff and high school stuff too, which was neat. And honestly, the sports area was probably the area we spent the least amount of time in. But there was industrial stuff. The one floor had almost everything related to Heinz, the history of Heinz, the company, the products. It was so cool. I really enjoyed that. One of their special exhibits right now is on toys of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, which was actually the last thing we looked at, and we had about 15 minutes to run through it, so we didn't really get to spend a whole lot of time in there, but that was really neat, because basically, it's going through a museum saying, oh, I had that as a kid. I had that as a kid. I had that as, you know, I'm never quite sure, you know, when you go to a museum and you start seeing things that either you know you had as a kid or you still own in your home and use, and they're considered historical relics. Never quite sure about that. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. Had a great day doing that. And then we went to the Spaghetti Warehouse for dinner on the way home, which is another really great place to eat if you're ever in the Strip District. So, yeah, that was yesterday. And today, it was poop. By the time I got home, I was like, okay, I'm going to bed now. I'm exhausted, and my legs and my back were killing me from all the walking we done. We actually had about an hour to kill between breakfast and when the History Center opened. And so we walked, which is one of my favorite things to actually do downtown. I love walking through town because usually if I'm going downtown, it's because I have to drive and go to something specific. So I'm driving, and when you're driving, you don't get to look at the buildings and the architecture. And Pittsburgh, oh my goodness, Pittsburgh has some absolutely stunning architecture. The details on these buildings, these old buildings, is just incredible. And I love looking at it, but I don't get to because, again, I'm driving and I'm trying not to run over pedestrians and I'm trying not to get hit by pat buses. So having an hour to just walk around was lovely. We went up Grant Street, and that's like where the federal building is and the county building, I think, and I don't know, the courts and just old building. Really neat stuff. I get so excited about that. And then we kind of made a loop and went back to where the History Center is down in the Strip. So it was a lot of walking yesterday, a lot of being on my feet. I'm still tired today. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just achy today. I don't know why. Maybe it's the weather. It's damp. My rheumatiz is acting up. I don't know. Anyway, so that's all the social and historical, cultural stuff I've done in the last week. Reading-wise, though, I have been reading. Hi, Muffin. Muffin's out in the hallway. If you hear tip-tapping, that's her and her nails, and now she's whining. Anyway, I finished The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. I'm satisfied with its ending. Like, the way it ended was probably about as good as that story could wrap up. It definitely had a twist at the end that I was not expecting, a couple twists that I was not really expecting, but it neatly tied together some things that I had been wondering about. So that was good. I still never ended up feeling very sympathetic towards any of the characters. The one at the end, I was kind of like, okay, I wish you well, character. Um, but yeah, it was a good book. If you're not into psychological drama kind of stuff, and you don't care for dark stories, this may not be the book for you, but it was generally enjoyable by the time I got done with it. I'm glad I listened to it. So I don't listen to a lot of or read a lot of books that are like that everybody's reading this, I have to read this kind of book. I don't read a lot of those, so occasionally when I do get one that a lot of people have read and is talked about and people know it, I always feel somewhat accomplished in a weird way. So that was that. But anyway, once I was finished with that book, I really needed to read something light and happy. So I downloaded a book by Mindy Kaling, her first one, which is called Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me? And I think it's And Other Concerns or something, I don't know. Mindy Kaling played Kelly Kapoor on The Office, the US version of The Office, and she was one of the writers for the show as well. And I think she has her own show, The Mindy Show. She referred to that maybe. Anyway, the book was wonderful. It was a short audiobook. It was probably about 5 hours, maybe not even 5 hours, but it was really, really good. She is very funny, not like, haha, I'm roaring with laughter all the time, but very quippy, very just a subtle kind of sense of humor in some ways. She read the book and she very good. You know, she was an excellent reader for her own book. But what I loved about it was it talked a lot about her upbringing and you know, she grew up here in the United States. She's Indian, but she grew up here in the United States, and I'm assuming she was born in the U.S. I don't remember for sure, but anyway. She just talks about her upbringing, and it was like a very happy childhood and very normal, you know, things that your normal average person can probably relate to, but it was in a way that she was not apologetic about it, and it wasn't anything like, okay, yeah, I had this normal boring childhood and now I need to really live life. Nothing like that. It's like she liked her upbringing, she loves her family, loves her parents, you know, had a great time, went to college. You know, it was just a really happy, upbeat book of stories about her life. And it was honestly a book that I would say, you know, this would be great for a young person to read, like a teenage girl or something. It would be a good book for it because it was a very encouraging book and a little bit of profanity, but not very much, you know. It was a good book. I really enjoyed it. So I can highly recommend that. If you want just a happy, fun memoir to listen to, I would listen to that. As a matter of fact, I liked it so much that as soon as I was done with it, I went and I downloaded Why Not Me, which is her second memoir-ish book. I'm not very far into it yet. It seems, though, so far it's kind of like a continuation of the first one. So I think it's more about her adult years and like her working years now. You know, contrasting that to Paddle Your Own Canoe that I told you I've just sort of given up on and I'm not listening to by Nick Offerman. It's almost like he has something to prove in his book, and she doesn't. She's telling it. She's just telling her story, and it's fun and uplifting and light, and I'm really enjoying it. So, other than that, the only other 10% thing, I guess, would be Easter. It's Easter weekend, so if you celebrate Easter, I hope you have a good Easter. Today is Good Friday, so I hope you're having a good Friday whether you celebrate Easter or not, but you know what I mean. I don't know where I'm going with that. My Easter will be quite quiet. None of my kids are here this year for Easter, so I'm just looking for a nice laid-back weekend. The weather is supposed to be beautiful, so that's always exciting because, you know, I remember as a kid, and even when my kids were little, you know, you'd get the special Easter outfit, nice spring dress, and then it would snow and you'd have to wear your winter coat and boots. That was always a bummer. So this year, at least here in our area, it should be really nice, and you can wear your pretty new Easter dress if you have one and not have to also dress like an Eskimo. So, alrighty, I'm going to move into shop news now before I babble anymore about Easter dresses. What's the matter, Muffin? She's just like standing in the doorway. She's afraid of doorways. It's odd. And she doesn't know what to do because she'd like to come in and be under my desk because she likes to be by my feet when I'm in here. But she won't come in. She's just going to stand there and whine right now. And every time I look at her, she kind of backs up like, never mind. She's a goofy dog. Anyway, all right, shop news. I am having an update this week, tomorrow, as a matter of fact, Saturday the 26th. It'll be at noon Eastern, and I'm going to preview what's going into there in just a minute. But first I wanted to mention I did my spring cleaning sale last weekend. Thank you so much to everybody who shopped that. Moved a lot of stuff out of the shop, making room for other things. So I'm hoping everybody enjoys everything that they ordered from that sale. So thanks so much for taking part of that. Also, the Knitter's Choice Sock Blank Club signups closed this week on Wednesday. Thank you to everyone who signed up. We got 21 people signed up. My limit was going to be 25, so I did not have to cut anybody. Everybody who signed up got in, so yay. I sent the letters out and the first invoices that day, and actually I think almost everybody has paid. I think I'm like waiting for 1 or 2 payments yet. So thank you so much to everybody who paid right away. I mean, you had all the way to the 31st, and everybody was very timely on that. So thanks so much. That means I can order the sock blanks now and get dyeing. I can't wait. I cannot wait to do this. This club's going to be so much fun. I always enjoy doing clubs because it's usually, it gives me an opportunity to try new things and do new things that I don't ordinarily do. So that's what I'm really looking forward to with this. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And the fact that, you know, it's a Knitter's Choice Club, which means you have a little bit of input. You know, I asked everybody what your favorite color was. If you know, some people are like, oh, I like them all, you know, and that's fine. I like to know what your favorite color is just so that, you know, at least one of the installments of the club, you know, will be, it won't be all that color, but I can focus on that color maybe. So that'll happen. And then like if you have a color that you really hate, I asked you that. And some people didn't put one in, but if you do, I do my best to try to make sure that color doesn't show up in any of your shipments. Sometimes that's hard though, because when you put more than one dye together, sometimes they form a third color and it may be along that line, but I'll try to avoid that for you. But anyway, looking forward to that. So all of the sock blanks, that's the other interesting thing about this club. Unlike any other club that I've done, every sock blank that I do, even if there's 2 people who like the same colors and I'm using the same colors, the sock blanks are all going to turn out differently because there is no way to get a sock blank to look absolutely identical, at least not a way I have found to do absolutely identical sock blanks. So they're all going to have their own personality. So what you receive for each of your 3 shipments is going to be unique to you. So I hope you enjoy that. Okay. The one last businessy kind of thing I want to mention before I do the shop preview is that the Fiber Nymph Dye Works first quarter finished object drawing will close on March 31st. So that's next Thursday at 11:59 p.m. your time. And then I will close the thread and draw a winner for the $25 gift certificate for the first quarter shortly after that. And then I'll open the second quarter thread. So anyway, you've got a little under a week to finish up anything that you're knitting from my yarn or spinning from my fiber or knitting from my fiber that you've already spun. Doesn't have to be started this quarter, just has to be finished, and post a finished object picture in the thread over on the Fiber Nymph Dye Works board, and that enters you. So, okay, shop update. That will be tomorrow, Friday the 26th of March at noon Eastern Time. And it is all sock yarn. Actually, I was going to say mostly sock yarn, but no, it is all sock yarn this week in different varieties. And so let me start with what I have right in front of me. I did some mini sets. The last mini sets that I did went really well, so I wanted to offer you some more. This time I decided to do ones that I've not done before, and these are tonals, but they're speckled tonals. So we will have pink, and these are all tonals as in the base color was dyed with more than one pink, so there will be different intensities and different tones of pink in the base yarn. So there's pink, orange, green, purple, and blue. And then each of them are speckled with complementary colors. So the blue has a couple different of blue speckles. You can see them in there. I love the speckles because it just gives that pop and depth when you knit them up. So the purple. Here's the orange that has some deep reds and earthenware reds. I know these aren't focusing very well. There we go. So you can see those. And then the pink has some deep pink and purplish speckles. So I did them on Bounce, and I did the same colors on Bedazzled. So there will be 2 mini sets up in Bounce and 2 in Bedazzled, and you can pick whichever one you like. So that is one thing that will be going in the shop. Now let's move on to the self-striping sock yarn, because that's what everything else is, and I have 3 new colorways. Yes, 3. One is technically, I'm not sure if it's going to be an ongoing colorway. It may just be a one-of-a-kind-ish kind of colorway, but I think I'm going to try to do it again. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to do this by base. Let's see. Okay, first of all, I have my Squish base, okay, which is the BFL nylon base, which is one of my newer additions. People have really, really loved it, and I love it. I've knit with it, and I really like it. So for this one, I did a couple of oldies. You know what? I've got so many colorways. I've got hundreds and hundreds of self-striping colorways, literally, that I have done over the years. And there's some that are older that I don't do as often anymore. So it's always fun to add those back in here and there. I would say these are probably from a few years ago. They aren't like my really, really old ones, but anyway, this is the Squish base, and this is Rockabilly Bride and Manic Camo. So there will be those. And then also on the Squish base, there's Gnome Place Like Home. Gnome Place Like Home has the green stripe and the brown stripe are variegated stripes. The red and the blue are semi-solids, and the white is just an undyed stripe. So, but yeah, I love doing variegated stripes and things. So there's Gnome Place Like Home, and then this one is Eastern Horizon, which was, I believe, the January minis of the month self-striping color. So it's that winter sunrisey colors that you see on the Eastern Horizon. Just a really soft, pretty color. It's actually a very nice spring colorway because it's a little pastel-y and soft, but yeah. Anyway, so those are on the Squish base. I think that's everything on Squish. Okay. Then on Bounce, let's see. I have some Gunmetal on Bounce. I have Abalone. I'm sorry. This is a 7-striper. I've done this a lot as gradients, but I also do it as a 7-stripe sock yarn too. So this is Abalone. And then the other 7-striper that I have is Secret Garden. This was one that I had in the last shop update as a lace weight gradient, and I re-dyed it as a self-striping. And I absolutely love these colors. Love them. There's that one stripe, and I talked about this when I showed the gradient. Okay, so the lightest color in here is that green. The next lightest is showing up here sort of as a mauve, actually. Mauve. When I mixed, it's a custom mixed color, and when I did it the first time for the gradients, it turned out it had more of a greenish base with that mauve overtone kind of to it. This time it's just more mauve. So obviously when I'm custom mixing dyes, they don't always turn out exactly alike every time, but there's usually not a whole lot of difference. This, there is quite a bit of difference. So when I do the mock-up, you'll get the picture of what it actually looks like in this. If I ever dye this again, which I will, and I mix the dye and the dye comes out more like what it looked like the first time, I'll just do a whole different mock-up. So you'll know. Anytime I do those mock-ups, those graphic representations of the striping patterns, I always make sure that they're accurate to the actual dye batch that I'm putting up in the shop, just so you know that. They're not just stock images that I use all the time if they aren't applicable. I mean, if they're, if the yarn, like some colorways show up the same all the time. I dye them and they're very consistent, so I can use the same graphic representation. But for things that change, I always make sure that I change that in that too, so that you know what you're getting, at least as best as I can portray them. So anyway, Secret Garden, 7 stripes. Here's one. This is one that's definitely one of my very first colorways I ever dyed, and this is Forest Floor. And I just love this one. It's only 3 stripes, but I just love this colorway. It's a wide stripe of the brown and the ecru, and then a narrow stripe of this foresty green in there. I love that one. So Forest Floor. Then there will be Harlequin, which I haven't done in a while, but that's always a nice, fun one. 4 stripes. This is a one-off. It was a special order. It's just 2 stripes of this kind of royal blue and yellow gold color. So it's just going in as a one-of-a-kind, but it'll be there. This is Pop Art. Okay, now Pop Art, remember that was one of the colorways I did for the Minis of the Month last year. And when I did it, it was a 3-stripe colorway, and then the contrasting color was this blue. I decided to change this up. So this is a variation on Pop Art. This is Pop Art with 4 stripes, and I included the blue in the striping pattern. So I am so excited about how this turned out, because ever since I first did it, I thought, oh, this would look really good with all 4 of those colors in the striping colorway. So I finally had a chance to play with that. So I'm really happy. So this is Pop Art variant, I guess we'll call it. And then lastly, in Bounce, I have Star Trekkie. I haven't dyed Star Trekkie in a while, but I had a special order for it, so I just dyed up some extras. So there will be, I think, 2 in Bounce, and then there's also 1 in Bedazzled. So, Star Trekkie. Then also in Bedazzled, I have Amy. Amy was a variegated colorway that I did a long time ago. It was an Amy Winehouse inspired colorway. So, but I turned it into a self-striping, kind of deconstruct. I like doing that. I deconstruct my tonal or variegateds and then turn them into a self-striping. I like how they turn out sometimes. So this is Amy, and she's on Bounce this time. And then I have one colorway on Heavenly, which is my MCN base, and that's Doubletree. I know it's odd that I only have one thing on MCN, but that's how it worked out this time. Okay, now moving on to the new colorways. Okay, this is the first one that I mentioned. I'm not really... I'm still thinking about naming it and having it be a repeatable colorway, but we'll see. It was basically a case of I had some extra dye left over from other things I was dyeing at the end of the day, and I thought, you know what? Oftentimes I'll throw that on fiber, or I'll throw it on, a skein and just do a variegated one-off. But I thought, you know what? I want to do self-striping with this. So basically what we've got here is there's like this green, it's a turquoisey green, peacocky blue, sort of a dark lavender purple, and then a gray, like a dark charcoaly gray, soft black kind of color. I just really, really like how it turned out. So, oh, that's my phone ringing. You can hear it in the background, I'm sure, but I'm not going to hop up and get it right now. You'll just have to listen to the birds chirp and the ringing. I have the weirdest ringtone ever. All right, so that is on Bounce. Also on Bounce is this colorway, which I'm calling Meet Me at the Park, because this colorway just reminds me of a sunny day going to the park. You've got the sunshine, you've got the green grass, you've got the blue sky, and then you've got like the gray of the walkways, and just going to the park, meeting a friend at the park to take a walk, or taking your kids to the park for a play date. I almost called it play date, but I liked Meet Me at the Park better. Anyway, it's just a really bright, happy, I think it's a very bright, happy spring kind of colorway, spring and summer colorway. So there's a couple skeins of that on Bounce. And then lastly, I've got 2 skeins of this on Bounce and 2 on Squish. And the reason I did this is because I got a new super bright like fluorescent color and I wanted to use it. Ah, sunglasses. I'm calling this On the Bright Side because it is definitely on the bright side. So we have chartreuse, bright yellow, and then we've got electric purple, we've got bright blue, we've got fuchsia, and then lastly the new color, which I haven't actually named yet. It's this green. It's this electric-y, bright, like toxic green color. I want to call it toxic green, but that sounds sort of ominous. I don't know. But yeah, I had to use that green, and I wanted to put it all together with these other bright, happy, screaming electric-y colors. So if you love bright, happy, screaming electric colors, this is an awesome colorway. It's 5 stripes. On the Bright Side is the name of it. So there you go. That's everything. Everything that will be going in the shop. Again, that's tomorrow, the 26th at noon Eastern. That's a good update for international people, I find, too, usually, at least European international. So anyway, that's everything. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And again, if you celebrate Easter, have a great holiday with your family and friends, or by yourself, however you celebrate. And I will talk to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.